Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Game's going to be decided here. Harold spots up, doesn't go, put back is good! Roberto Gallina with a second chance opportunity. Aris lead. Per Gunter for three, got it! Per Gunter, drei Punkte! Cullen, pull up three, no good. Orcus, the offensive board, he turns around and shoots. Got it at the buzzer!
Welcome to episode 22 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one Tony the Tiger. Anyone who's known me for a long time will know just how much I love following the TV Tigers. It's been 20 years since their demise and I still miss them. I was determined to get at least one former Tiger on this podcast. Tony Holley played for a few teams during his professional career, but a lot of it was spent with Thames Valley. I'm delighted that Tony joined me for this episode and that he managed to find the time to get the interview recorded. We'll look back on his start in Ireland, those Tiger days, and other stops along the way, including the Manchester Giants. So, without further ado, let's get to it.
Tony, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to get you on. A former Tiger, of course, you played for a lot of other teams as well. But, you know, I'd love to talk to you about those days in Bracknell. But let's have a little look back on your career. And I want to go back to, I think it's about 1990. You come out of Troy State University. And I've got you down as playing for Jameson St. Vincent's. Was that an Irish team you went to?
Yeah, it was in. I actually started in Cork with Don Milk Blue Demons. Got released from there. It was the only time in my career I got released, so I remember it quite vividly. But then I moved. After I got released, I got picked up by Jameson in Dublin, and I played there the rest of the season.
And that was your first pro experience. What was that like for you, moving to another country?
Yeah, that was my first. Had never even been out the country until then. And
what was it like in Ireland for you that year?
It was a shock. You know, you come from university where you got access to, you know, the gym facilities. You know, can pretty much come and go as you please as far as working out or whatever. And you get to Ireland and there's none of that. You know, everything has. You know, you have to kind of figure it out on your own, which was different. Kind of different for us. For me, for sure.
I can't find information. Do you remember how the team did when you were there?
In Cork, I think we were pretty decent. I know Jameson, we made the playoffs. We got beaten in the first round. In the semifinal, we got beaten in the playoffs. But it was a great experience for me. I still got a lot of friends that I played with over there that I keep in contact with via social media.
And then from Ireland to England, and I assume there would be in a National League team, Berry Lobos.
After Ireland, a lot of the players, you know, Jerome Westbrooks, Kelvin Troy, Lenny McMillan, Ken Black, who are legendary in Irish basketball, they all, you know, kind of pushed me to leave Ireland and go to England. So Jerome had a connection with Berry Lobos. And he called him up and told him about me. And they said, sure, we'll bring him on over. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, so you spent a year there and then you went to Doncaster. Now, if I remember correctly, you played for Doncaster the year before they joined the BBL. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, sir. I was there. Curtis Xavier was the coach. So that's kind of where my game really expanded as far as from post to playing on the perimeter, shooting a three ball. He kind of instilled all that, put all those pieces into my game. So, you know, if I had to pick one person that had a big influence on, developing my skill level, it would certainly be Curtis Xavier.
And as they were in the second tier then, obviously Doncaster moved into the BBL the year after, but you then joined Thames Valley. Was there an opportunity to stay with Doncaster, or did Thames Valley come calling?
It was kind of a little both. You know, I had played against Mickey when he was with Ware Rebels, and so he knew about me. So when the season finished at Doncaster, I had opportunity to just stay there. But you know, once Mickey gave me the call and said they were interested in me, And it was a new challenge to go to Thames Valley.
Yeah, just for the sake of the podcast, you're talking about obviously the legendary coach Mickey Bett, yes.
Yes.
And what was it like playing for Mickey Bett? Because the Tigers are starting to get good around that point. They'd won some silverware, and of course you joined them in obviously their most historic season that they would have in terms of the championship.
Yeah. Playing for Mickey was one of my best experiences. He didn't do a lot of yelling and screaming. He allowed me to play my game. That first couple of years, I was super lucky because I came into a team that that had basketball BBL Hall of Famers on it: Nigel Lloyd, Pete Scantz, Mike Obaseki, Tony Balogan, Nick Cook. Michael Hill. So the team was already loaded with veterans. So that first year, Pete Scantz was and Tony Balogan was just a blessing. It taught me the game. Things to do, things not to do. In top flight basketball. So that first year was more of a learning experience as far as leadership. And I was on a team with great leadership, so I learned leadership from them. And playing for Mickey was just an awesome blessing because you come from coaches that screaming and throwing you under the bus to Mickey was like he kind of put he put everything in place, and then they said go out there and play. It was no screaming and yelling and pointing fingers. So that was a great experience.
How did Mick influence your game?
Just through offensive formations. He put in offense that complemented my skill set: to shoot the three, post up, rebound. So it was that was the great thing about it, that the plays that we put in, it complemented my game. It didn't put me in positions to fail, if you want to say.
And obviously you weren't there the year before, because the year before they'd lost to Worthing with the league. Then they obviously won the league that year.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the playoffs in a moment, or they might not want to remember them. But what are your memories of that season? Any particular games or matchups that you can recall?
Guilford, because my work visa took a while to come in, so they played a preseason game against Guilford, and I just remember Mickey calling me and telling me they lost by 20, and Guilford had this guy that looked like Tracy Pearson, was like 400 pounds. That was just unstoppable. And so when I got there, our first game against Guilford, we beat them in the regular season. So I remember those games. Then we played them again and beat them again. So those games against Kevin Cato and those great Guilford teams, they stand out. Worthing, we had some battles, with Allen and Colin and Cleve Lewis, Steve Nelson, Herman Hareed. So those games against Worthing and Guilford, they stick out from that season.
Of course, Guilford being a sort of localish rival, only a few miles down the road from Bracknell.
Yeah, absolutely. So back then, Kevin Cato coached teams were the teams to beat. If you wanted to get silverware, if you want to get to a championship, you had to go through him and his team. So those are the games that I remember the most.
Yeah, absolute legend, Kev. I do miss him. You went to Bracknell. Obviously, you played in Ireland. You played National League. I went to the Pit for many, many years as a fan. It was a small venue, wasn't it? 3 sides of seating, not the greatest, but it was one of those venues that when it was full, it used to be so loud, didn't it? It was.
Oh yeah, I couldn't. When I came back when I was in my later years, when I came back to Thames Valley, I just remember, John Walker on the mic saying that, the place was already full and there was still a line outside trying to get in, because the seating capacity wasn't the greatest, but the atmosphere was just unbelievable. It was like just playing in a little warehouse, but the fans are right on top of you. right, the floor and it wasn't much separation between the floor and the stands, so
Yeah.
it was a real personable atmosphere.
Yeah. Mind you, that floor at the Bracknell Leisure Centre wasn't good for anybody's knees, was it?
Oh no, mine's still hurting to this day from it. Yeah, I can remember taking a many a Northern Plus
Yeah.
after those games.
I have to go back to that championship year. How disappointing was it? You'd won the league, and then I think it's Derby Bucks, the playoffs, and they came in and beat you in both games. How much of a shock was that?
Well, we had the first game won, and they beat us at the buzzer. Half court shot. Then the second game they just rolled us. But towards the end of that season, we lost Obaseki, and everybody was banged up. And I think towards the end of that season, we had went as far as we could go with that team. Everybody was banged up. We lost Obaseki. That was a big loss to us. And I got injured. Had a knee injury. So it was super disappointing to do all that work all year long. We won the trophy, we won the league. So you want to add the playoff championship to it. So have that type of season and have it end like that. It still kind of bothers me to this day when I think about it.
That's 31 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a long time, Tony. A long time.
Yeah.
I mean, you would get a chance to go to a couple more playoff finals with the Tigers, which we would go on to. But you mentioned some of the players you played with. The thing I loved about your first stint with the Tigers was in those days just the quality of players that you had as teammates.
Yeah.
Did any of them make you a better player, if you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. How can you not play with Nigel Lord and not become a better player? How can you not play with Pete Scantz and not become a better player? Tony Balogan, Mike Obaseki, Mike Hales, Hales instilled in me to have a defensive first mindset, because that's how he approached the game. So that's when I saw that in him, that's when I started doing. Pete Scantz was probably the best overall player in the league, so he inspired me to work on all aspects of my game. Nigel was probably the best leader that the BBL has probably ever had. He knew where to get people the ball. He knew where people would be. He knew people's skill set. And Below was just a monster in the paint. Back then. So I was really fortunate enough to come into a team like that, to have, those players, five or six Hall of Famers, and then a Hall of Fame coach. You couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, that's a good year. There was some obviously tough times towards the end of your first spell with the Tigers, but you'd finish off one weekend that sticks out to me because I remember with my local basketball team who bought tickets for it, was the 98 playoff Wembley weekend. You got all the way to the final and came up just short against Birmingham Bullets.
Yeah.
And a guy called Tony Dorsey, and of course a former teammate in Nigel Lloyd.
Yeah. They I still look back on that. If John McCoy doesn't get hurt, we probably win that game. But he turned his ankle in the first quarter, so that kind of hindered our offense because he was a big part of our offense. His game spread the floor, so when he got hurt, it made the next man up. So. I just think we fell short because he got hurt in that game. But take nothing from Birmingham. They had Dorsey. I ended up playing with Dorsey for 2 years. So they had a great team. H.L. Coleman. But I just remember that John getting hurt in the first quarter really turned the tide in that game.
I just remember of all the times I saw the Tigers in the playoffs. For me personally, that was the one that hurt the most because I felt. Even though Dorsey had that amazing game, I think he won the MVP as well.
Yeah,
I felt that game was winnable.
Oh yeah. We, there again, I was fortunate enough because Paul James was the coach. PJ, as we called him. We had a great year. PJ was just super in his first year as coach. He hit all the right buttons. Had had the right roster and everything. So we went into every game feeling like that we were going to win it. So and we had played Birmingham 2 times before and beaten them twice. So when we were playing them in the finals, we were supremely confident that we could beat them, but we came up short. In games like that, it come down to just a couple of plays, and we didn't make it. We didn't make those plays, and they did.
And you talked about some of the great players you played with. One of my favourite Tigers was John McCord. I just loved the way. What did he bring to the team, and what was it like being a teammate of his? And obviously, you played as an opponent against him.
John and I were roommates, so we talked a lot about basketball, and we still talk to this day a lot via social media. But he spread the floor, he ran the floor, he defended. He was just a super athlete, and that was something we hadn't had in a long time since Obaseki. So it opened up the driving lanes having him on because he drew so much attention, So it allowed other guys to flourish. Jason Seaman, Casey, Damon Page, So it allowed, because of the attention that he attracted. It opened up a lot for us.
You mentioned Casey Arena just there now. Was he a player, obviously, like Nigel, who could help your game?
He was a super passer. He saw the flow really well. You knew if you got open, Casey would get you the ball. So, in that point, he made he kept you moving because you knew if you moved and got open, he would get you the ball. He saw the floor really well. Super passer, great point guard. He wasn't a big time scorer, but he scored it when he had to.
And that Birmingham game was, like I said, the end of your Tigers' career. Had it been planned for you to go back, or did Manchester approach you first? Or
well, I had never even crossed my mind to even leave Thames Valley, but because I had a great relationship with the club, with the fans, with John Knight. But Manchester approached me and said, they had been trying to, put together a winning team for years. I started out there, so I just saw it as a chance to go and see if I could win with someone else, and that was the only reason I left. It was a tough decision, to go sit down with John Knight and tell him that I was leaving, I was going somewhere else. I still remember the conversation in the Carpet Beach, letting him know I was leaving, and I appreciated everything he had done for me. But we left. He said, "You're always welcome to come back here." So off to Manchester I went.
I suppose the thing is, well, a lot of people don't realise athletes have such a short career. You've got to take the opportunities when they come along, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I suppose for me, I always felt, because Manchester had the investment then, I always felt, even though I was really disappointed to see you go, I always felt that's a good move for your career.
Yeah, it was huge exposure. It was a huge exposure for me going to Manchester, playing in a 14,000 seat arena. Lot more games on Sky Sports. With Nick Nurse and Dorsey and all them coming, we traveled around Europe playing, some of the best teams before we started playing the Bills. So I think it was more of the challenge itself was a calling, but also the opportunity to show people I could win somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day, isn't it? Going from a little 850 venue like the Pit to what was. I don't know if it's a 9X or the MEN back then, but it was
the MEN back then.
It was the MEN, yeah. So you're going there, just massive arena.
Yeah.
And of course that was a pretty good team that you joined. I mean, you talked about Tony Dorsey, who was on that Bullets team, because as you mentioned, he was a teammate of yours in Manchester. What was it like playing alongside him?
I put playing with Dorsey was like playing with Magic Johnson. He had a great understanding of the game, great player, talked basketball a lot, which surprised me when I first got there. But he was always talking about basketball, talking about teams, how they play, what we could, what we could do against them. Great floor leader, could do it all. So that first year was just it was an eye-opening experience to play with someone like that, and then play with John White, Ronnie Baker. There again, another team of all-stars, Makiba Perry, Mike DeVoe, Kevin St. Kitts. We had a pretty good team.
Of course, Nick Nurse coaching in the NBA these days. What was he like as a coach for you?
Incredible. Nick Nurse I used to go up to the arena sometimes and go to the locker room, and I would go in there, it'd be pitch black in the locker room, the TV's on, and Nick Nurse is sitting in the dark with a remote watching game film. He was a student of the game. He let the play. He was a player's coach. He let the players play. He let you speak your mind. He spoke his. He was laid back, but sometimes he would get in your face if he wasn't doing the job. So it was great playing for Nurse. One of the best coaches I ever played for.
And what do you think about the fact, obviously, nowadays him and of course Chris Finch, who you would have played against, both coaching in the NBA?
Oh, you knew that Nurse was a good coach. You knew Finch was a good coach. When they started coaching in the G League, I kind of figured that sooner or later they'd end up on somebody's NBA bench, and so they did. But like you said, they have when opportunity knocks, you got to take it. Nick was at Brighton. He chose to fold that club and go back to the States and get into coaching. Because he had opportunity there, and that led to him being in Toronto. Same thing with Finch. He'd been in Sheffield. He left Sheffield, went to Belgium, left Belgium, and went back to the States and started coaching. And that led to him ended up coaching in the NBA.
It's always great when I watch an NBA game and say it's Philadelphia or say it's Minnesota.
Yeah.
But I remember them in the BBL.
As players and coaches. Yeah.
I have to talk about the end of that first season in Manchester. I do apologise. It's obviously because it's one of the moments in BBL history. But unfortunately for you that day, you were on the wrong side of it. But what are your memories of that title decider? I think it was good. Yeah, it was Good Friday, 1999.
Yeah,
against the Sharks.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to even be in that game because we had fallen two games back in the table, so we didn't think we even have an opportunity. But Sheffield ended up losing like 2 of their last 3, and we ended up winning. All 3 of us would set up that game. 13,000 people at the game. Good Friday. Great basketball. Atmosphere. I think if anybody in the country that know basketball probably watched that game. Probably one of the most watched games in BBL history. But the fall short. I see Wilbur Johnson online every once in a while, and he still brings up that game. So it's a difficult pill to swallow to lose on the buzzer. But they were the better team all year long. And they deserved it. You can't take anything from them. But it was disappointing to get that opportunity and not take advantage of it, especially playing at home.
Yeah, I remember that game well because, as you know, I'm a Tigers fan, and they finished, I think, 3rd that year. But I went up to that game. I mean, the atmosphere was amazing. It was live on Sky. Daniel Rutledge and the Cold Kev Cader was there. And there was only a small section at the far end from me, which was not sold out. It was just an amazing, amazing atmosphere. But I had to bring up because I just wondered what your thoughts were on that season because you had a lot of promise. Again, you always say you felt you shouldn't be in it because Greg Meldrum always liked to tell me that that only went down to the last day of the season because his Chester team beat the Sharks. But you ended up, I think you won the trophy you won the trophy that year, but that was the only silverware. Was that a disappointing season for you?
Absolutely. I can remember sitting at in the hotel after we lost to Thames Valley in Wembley, and Nick and Dorsey and myself were with Scott Mayer and just talking about, how underachieving it felt. At the end of that season to have, John White, myself, Dorsey, McKeeba, Ronnie Baker, and only win one piece of silverware.
Yeah, I was just distracted there for a second because I've actually got my ticket. I know it's useless for an audio podcast, but I've still got my ticket from the MEN that day. The good old days when you can actually keep a ticket from a game.
Yeah.
But I suppose the good thing is you came back the following year and you did have success. I mean, you didn't win. Yeah, I think you won 2 out of 4, but you reached 3 finals.
Yeah.
And after those playoff disappointments for quite a few years, you got your hand on the playoff title.
Yeah, oh yeah. That second year, we had a team full of dogs. Travis Conlon, Roy Harrison, Phil Handy, who's coaching in the NBA, Roy, who's coaching. I speak to Roy pretty often. I just speak Dorsey a lot. Dorsey's coaching in high school basketball in Atlanta and doing real well. Danny Craven, Mike DeVoe, Errol Seaman. God, we were loaded that year. I think we lost. I think we lost like 5 games. I can remember them all, but I think that Nick went away after that first disappointing season and looked at what we were lacking and filled in all those holes. And we won the South Division. When they split up the
North,
instead of having a league champion, they had North and South.
Yeah.
We made it to the Cup final, lost to Sheffield after being up 15 in the first half. We lost to the Towers in the last seconds in the trophy, and then we won at Wembley. So I always remember the losses more than I remember the wins. So although it was a lot better and maybe a more successful season by winning the championship at the end of the year, at Tower game, I wish we had gotten that one. Sheffield, we maybe could have gotten that one as well, but to win 2 out of 4 with that team was it was great, but it's still a little bit underachieving.
But the fact is, you got the one at the end of the season, because obviously, speak to a lot of Americans over the years, they don't understand our obsession with the league or the championship.
Yeah,
it's all about the playoffs. So what was it like for you? Because that's the last game of the season, and you won the title. There's no more games that season, so you got a lot of time to celebrate. Did you celebrate?
We went back to Wimbledon. We celebrated, but it's funny. It was like a bit of an anti-climax, but I had never won at the playoffs, so I was excited. Dorsey had already done it like 2 or 3 times, so it was kind of like normal thing to him. But to win the championship, it was a great feeling to be the last team standing at the end of the year. I think the disappointing part about it is that we didn't play the Towers of Sheffield, to try to avenge one of those losses. But I just remember going back to the Wembley Hotel and us drinking champagne and just talking about the whole season, because it had been, a long season. Played a lot of games between league games and trophy games and playoff games and preseason games. So, back then, if you wasn't careful, you could play 50-odd games in that short span of time of 3 or 4 months, 36 weeks.
Towards the end of the Giants, there was some financial issues. Had they started when you were still there, or did they come later?
They after the Cook Group the Cook Group sold the team in 99, 2000. That's when they started having some financial issues. Before, when the Cook Group owned the team, we didn't have any financial problems. None.
I just wondered if that was a factor in you later then going to Switzerland. Was it Boncourt, was it called?
BC. Well, I left the Giants a quarter way through the season in 2000 and went to Israel and played with Ascalon.
Oh, sorry, Israel first. Sorry.
Yeah. And I played the last 6 months there, and then I left Israel and went to Switzerland to BC Boncourt, which was a great experience. But I noticed that after the Cook group sold the team to a group that Nick Montgomery was in charge of running the team, but it just wasn't the same. Everything was a struggle. We had to work out in Rochdale instead of Wilmslow, which was close
to distance. Yeah, that's
we wasn't playing at the arena as quite as much. We were playing at the Velodrome. It just wasn't the same. And my agent at the time, Dan Davis, called me up and said, "I got an opportunity in Israel if you want to, pack up and leave." So I just went to Nick and told him. He pushed back on it a little bit, but he understood. So off to Israel I went.
And very briefly, what was that experience like for you?
Horrible. I never, they brought me in as a Bosman player, as they called it back then, but they were only playing me like 15, 16 minutes a game. I got my first DMP in Israel. The guys was great, but they just didn't respect. They just didn't respect Bosman players. They thought the homegrown players were better, so they played them more. So I got it, but it wasn't a great experience basketball wise, but teammate wise and country wise, it was a great experience.
And then you went on to Boncourt. I got them out of order. I do apologise. A chance to play in Switzerland. How was that for you?
Oh, it was excellent. Excellent. Coach was great. We were practicing 3 times a day. I remember bumping into Billy Singleton in the airport in Frankfurt, Germany. And he was like, "What happened to you?" I was down from like 120 stone to like 113. But it was we had a young team. We had Titus Channer, who was a Canadian guard that had played in England before. And it was just an awesome experience. We made it to the Cup final with a young team. We made the playoffs with a young team. I would have liked to gone back there, but physically what they were asking me to do and money wise what they were going to pay me, it just didn't make sense for me to do
that. And eventually, you end up back at the Tigers for your second spell.
Yeah.
Now, to me, it feels like 2 different eras, because when you came back, there wasn't so much money. The budgets are smaller. The crowds weren't as good in those later years. The team wasn't as good. But what was it like being back in Bracknell, somewhere where you enjoyed so much success before?
It was frustrating coming back, because they had, we had myself, Ed Williams, Mike Nurse, Barry Bowman, Brendan Graves. Greg was still there. Greg Milton was still there. It just didn't seem like the new era players understood the tradition, at Thames Valley of, winning and caring about winning and taking winning seriously. It didn't have that feel, it was just like going through the motions.
So you came back for a couple of years. I remember the 2002 or 2003 playoffs. We had that race with Newcastle. Remember racing them to get 4th place in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then Newcastle finished 5th, came into the pit and just took us apart.
Yeah. I actually played pretty well that game, but there again, if you haven't been there, you don't seize the opportunities. Those things happen. Newcastle had been there; they were hungry, and I just don't think that coming back to that team, we were hungry, just hungry at all. And I came in midway through the season. I remember asking PJ, like, "What is going on here?" Guys just didn't take it serious, and we had an opportunity there to go to Wembley to the playoffs, and had a home game in the playoffs, and we had fought so hard to get that spot, and just have lay an egg in front of the home fans. It was really disappointing.
And then you'd play one more year, and that would be your Tigers career at an end.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly at the time, something like PJ was saying, like, "Oh, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to go younger next year." Is that how you recall it?
Yeah, well, he didn't say younger. I just think that they they want to develop younger British talent, and they wanted to, they had Josiah James and Nick Moore, so they were a young team that didn't really have any room, because I want to win. I didn't want to be part of a rebuild, so that's how I ended up in Brighton. But that last season, we had Mike New was on the team. But you understand it, and I told PJ I appreciate the call, just letting me know. But moving on, I knew I wanted to play, and I wanted to play somewhere where they wanted to win, and that's how I ended up at Brighton.
And then Brighton, and finally, am I correct? You finished at Leicester Riders?
Leicester Riders, yeah, it was last year. We made it to the trophy final that year. Brighton, we won the trophy, and we won the cup and lost in the trophy final that year. Brighton, Leicester, we lost in the trophy final. But I had a great time at both of those stops.
Did you know by your last season with Leicester that was it? You were going to hang them up?
Yeah, I had enough by then. The money wasn't the same, and even getting paid became a problem. So I said it's time to go now.
And then this very quickly, because you're about to run out of time. Very quickly, you hung up your boots back then.
Yeah.
What came next, and what are you up to now?
I did we had a local team here, semi-pro team that had, I don't know if you remember Jerry Williams that played at Scottish Rocks, and Deron Rutledge, Trey Moore. We had a local professional team here that Steve Tucker was coaching, and I called him up and asked him if he needed any help play, because they're right in my hometown. So I was just being at home playing. So I went out and I played one season with them, the Jacksonville Jam. Great experience. We ended up losing in the playoffs in that game, but we had a great team. It was all Americans. And that, from there, I went in now to what I'm doing now is, we have a transportation company. We transfer, people back and forth to, special events, airport and whatnot. Been doing that for about 5 or 6 years. I still do some security work for some of the NFL players here in town. But other than that, I watch basketball, but I don't follow it as closely as I do. I follow Chester Jets in England, but other than that, I don't follow much of BBL basketball anymore. I know there's like someone is taking over it, and there's all sorts of stuff going on now.
Yeah, there's a lot changed. Trust me.
Yeah.
The Jets are the Phoenix, the BBL's the SLB, and there's just so much going on. But listen, Tony, it's been absolutely wonderful to catch up with you after all this time and look back on your career. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast today.
Yeah, anytime.
And finally, if you're enjoying what we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, or even share the pod on your social media. Every little bit of support helps. Until next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a Hoops and Hockey production.